What's on the silver screen? I got some takes you wouldn't believe. Popmosis Film.
Paul, right?
Oh, was Sucker Punch? Oh, I thought Josiah was.
Oh, I didn't know that. I wasn't prepared.
Oh,
wait.
I didn't know.
I thought
you were.
I thought.
Oh no,
I was. I'm just kidding. I just wanted everybody to. Sorry.
I have no idea.
Rabbit
I
season.
just know I'm.
I guess I could have Sucker. I'm not really prepared to do that.
Hey, guess what? That's kind of like how the movie felt the whole time. That the entire movie was
totally
not prepared for anything whatsoever.
Yeah, we're already there. We're right on.
I like how we've done like Green Lantern and like other stuff, and then like this is the one we're just like I don't want to host. No, you host. I don't. No, you host. I don't want to. I think
no one wants to be too closely associated with it.
It's time. We're gonna be three-way hosting on a 3-person podcast.
I could do it. I could do it if you want.
I'm keeping all this in, right? Because this is
great. No, I think we should totally.
Because you probably have more notes than I do. I think like you have the plot and everything, and
it's mostly just my notes are like covered in my tears though. So, but we'll work with that. So, hello and welcome to Popmosis Film.
Start. Wait.
We are started. This is all happening.
Oh wait,
that's all. We're gonna be real with this, Paul. This is the way it is.
I feel like we were more prepared.
We got to this conclusion.
I feel like we were more prepared for this podcast than I was to actually watch the film because I had never seen this film before.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Neither did I. I have not seen it either.
This is my second time watching it, and it's never been as miserable as the first time.
I mean, it was a chore to get through it. So we were talking about Sucker Punch today.
Are we prepping, or is this the actual podcast?
This is the actual podcast, Paul.
Oh shit!
We're not dreaming, Paul. We're not hallucinating.
Well, I thought you were kidding.
No, this isn't like a dream within a dream.
Paul, wake up.
We're podcasting within a podcast within a
And then the twist ending is where you did a thing that you obviously did at the beginning of the movie. Is that what's happening here?
In the dream, was there no weight to the actual person?
None whatsoever. It was.
Paul, you're gonna wake up. You're gonna wake up boarding a bus after this.
Oh.
It's all style. That's this podcast. All style, no substance.
And you're gonna feel
urine.
You're gonna wake up walking onto a bus and feel so much smarter than both me and Josiah.
Yeah.
Which isn't saying much, to be fair to our intelligence, but still.
I like how the movie's ugly and beautiful at the same time. It's like all these like muted, horrible colors and like stylized, but then like it's so ugly. It's so bizarre.
It is.
This is
let's just say who we are. For those of you who might be new to this podcast, we're not usually this chaotic. Maybe we are, but we at least usually know who's hosting. But as we're not sure any of us wanted any association with this film, so I guess it falls to me. But my brothers in bad movie watching, Tyler and Paul, will support me as we go through this, and if any of us pass out, the other will pick up where the other one left off. So we're watching Zack Snyder's Sucker Punch, produced by Snyder and his wife. What's her name? Deborah, right? Deborah Snyder. Yes, okay, my notes. There it is. With cinematography by Larry Fong, who also did 300. He worked on Lost and The Watchmen. A lot of Zack Snyder saw Batman vs. Superman. A lot of very moody looking things. And written by Snyder with Steve Shibuya, who I looked up his stuff about him. The most interesting thing was, weirdly, he was a production assistant on Killer Clowns from Outer Space, which I know the Kyoto brothers. I just thought that was such a weird credit to have. And he hasn't done a ton. And you look, and there's like 4 or 5 credits for him, and one of them is that production assistant on that film where he was an effects assistant, apparently. So it was released on March 25th, 2011, and very, 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 very loosely based on Alice in Wonderland. The budget was...
Can we just start off with saying, I don't fucking see it for one goddamn second in the whole entire film. Like, I don't, besides the fact that they're in a mental institution. That is it.
If I didn't like read it from Zack Snyder or like interviews and stuff, no.
Like,
it's not. It's like, it's a girl who goes into a fantasy world.
Yeah.
Which is half of
I
movies.
was so surprised. I didn't even know that was the case. That it was like had any association.
Yeah, I don't get it. I'm so confused.
I thought, like at the end when she's driving away, that it was connected to the Wizard of Oz because you see a scarecrow in the distance. Like that's what I thought. That there's like some connection to Wizard of Oz.
That's a better parallel, actually. I mean, it's in Kansas at the end, right?
Okay, she got her brain back, and the scarecrow got his brain too. That was messed up.
There you go. See, it's funny how we're thinking about it more than Zack Snyder did.
Probably.
So let's look at a few more of the details in this movie to just before we lambast it. March 25th, 2011, this was released or unleashed upon theaters with a budget of $82 million. It opened at $19 million, so opened pretty big. The trailer, I mean, this is a movie that was like built for trailers, and that's it. Because you have like cool action and hot girls, and that's pretty much the pitch for the movie, I'm assuming. It grossed a total in the worldwide $90 million with only $36 million US. So think about that. It opened at $19 million in the United States, total of $36 million. So that is a huge drop off to the rest of its probably brief theatrical run. It stars Emily Browning as Babydoll, Abby Cornish as Sweet Pea, Jenna Malone as Rocket, Vanessa Hudgens as Blondie, and Jamie Chung as Amber. And it's that's who is in it. There's some other people too. Oscar Isaac is some guy.
Oh yeah, like a baby-faced Oscar Isaac.
I know.
Yeah, he looks so young.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, it's like 2011. Did I look that young that long ago? I don't know. I guess I mean, I know I have way more, as I like to put it, winter in my beard than I did then, but I don't know that I look like an infant like Oscar Isaac did.
Yeah.
Because he's like, he's a brothel owner in the fantasy.
Right? No, well, I don't know which level of fantasy that is. So.
And then he's the orderly when it's the hospital, which is the reality. I don't know.
But is that the reality? Because with there's levels of reality here, right? Or they're trying to be.
Sure.
So let's just give a little bit of context for the film. So, I like literally the first thing was right. I'm searching this on. It's currently, as we watch it on HBO, as they have, I think, a streaming contract with Warner Brothers, and I'm literally typing the word "suck." I typed in "suck" to look for it, and that just sums up everything with the experience for this film. To find it, you just search "suck" and it will appear before you. So apparently it was almost rated R. It should have been rated R, but it was edited down to a PG-13 version, and it's not because of any of the action stuff. This is we might touch on some Snyder cuts here and there, which are kind of a big thing now, but apparently there is a director's cut of this on DVD that's like almost 20 minutes longer that I have no interest in watching.
Please, for the love of God, no.
And apparently, because John Hamm is in it, right? He's the guy who's going to poke her in the eye to give her
the doctor
bridge.
Or whatever.
Yeah,
the bridge.
And apparently he was intended to essentially rape her, for lack of force himself on her, and that was stuff that was cut out because that was what was pushing it into the R rating. So
thank God, I was like, it's just
because when you see
so unnecessary.
No, it's so unnecessary, but at the same time, when you see that actor in that part, you're like, why would they get that guy to be like a glorified extra? Because he does so little in this version of it. Not that makes the movie better, but that's just so that's what made it not R-rated. So, my notes are things like literally slow motion doesn't equal dramatic or powerful. Is this a 2-hour music video?
This movie.
But can I one thing?
Go ahead.
When I first started watching the movie, I was confused how the little sister died. Was it at a ricochet from the bullet when she fired the gun, or was it the steam?
No,
like the powerful steam killed her, or was it the stepfather? I had no idea how the little sister died. Like,
I think it was ricochet.
It was the
that
ricochet.
was my understanding. That it was ricochet. She
Okay.
killed her when she tried to shoot the dad or whatever.
I thought it was the stepfather that like killed her.
Yeah, see, I actually had the same thing. I thought it was the stepfather as well, but I think it was because they showed it at the end of the movie. And like I just remember seeing like the lamp moving, and I was like, and there was no reason for that lamp to move, so I think it just ricocheted off of the lamp and hit her.
Because there's like throughout the film, one of the is this a motif in a Zack Snyder film? There was
Sure.
always a broken bulb. On the makeup mirror, there's a broken bulb. There's a broken bulb because the broken bulb after she shoots. So she shoots the bulb, and that's what then kills the sister. And I thought, to me, it was obvious at the beginning that she killed the sister, and that they wanted you to think, oh, was it? It kind of sort of point to the dad, but not completely point to the dad. So that then the whole movie is the revealing that she killed the sister. And I read a review that described that. I think the review was kind of nice to this movie, and it essentially said that's the sucker punch, that the twist at the end, like, but giving it too much credit, I think.
Oh, 1,000%. I have so many things to say about this movie. It's just hard to put them in words because of annoyance. Like, I get so annoyed thinking about this film that I don't know how to like articulate it. I don't know if that's like a thing for you with you guys.
No, I do. Literally, my notes are
Is
normally.
it
Obviously,
Not even, okay, all right. I know. This is how I will. Like, should we just like do a quick review and then we'll just go through the movie?
We can do whatever you want.
Man,
Yeah.
We're gonna sucker punch the audience right now. Just
Yeah,
like go off the cuff.
Yeah, man, lazy. This movie is 1,000% lazy. Not the graphics, not some of the performances, but I will say this: this movie has some of the shittiest storytelling I've ever seen. That script is so bad. I feel like he wrote one draft and was like, "I'm done," and that's it. And I will say this: I think that Vanessa Hudgens was fantastic. And I'm forgetting all the other names of the actresses as well. Everybody.
Scott Glenn was amazing too as the sort of mentor character.
Yeah,
but it's
that's
just
all
another
he plays,
example.
though. Isn't that just all he plays?
No context whatsoever for him to be in this movie.
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah.
But
you have to give some context, like maybe create a sense that he is the idealized version of her father. Anything. They did none of that.
No,
like, it doesn't exist.
It's
a movie that thinks it has substance because it looks a certain way, but it has no substance because it's not in the story.
No, it doesn't. And like, I will say this: Emily Browning, even though I've seen her in other movies like Sleeping Beauty and a few other things as well, she is a phenomenal actress or actor. She is not in this film at all.
No, she's terrible in this, and I don't really.
So bad. She's so lazy. Every time there's a fight scene, she looks like she's just not trying at all. We're like Vanessa Hudgens and Jenna Malone, I think is her name, just fucking brought it. They were awesome. Like they were great. They looked like action stars. They really, really, really made it feel like what was happening was actually happening. Like whenever, like, and there was a point where like they all jump and there's like a 20-foot jump, and everybody else does like the whole like where they like kind of like fall a little bit and then they get up and then they have to like, you know, kind of what's the word I'm trying to think? Just kind of stabilize. Where she just falls and then just keeps walking normally, and I'm just like, man, and like all these action sequences, she's just so boring. I'm like, why aren't you using a stunt person who will actually try and will actually throw a punch? Like, it's so bad. And it just took me out of the movie. Like, this movie is just so lazy and annoying. And that's my review of the film.
That's it in a nutshell.
5 stars. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
My thoughts were, I literally, as I'm watching it, because it's not a beautiful film, but it's just it's a well-made film in terms of production, art, like the
Art
effects, the action,
yeah.
All those things are fantastic. It's like so expertly made, but with just a storytelling that's terrible. But there's like a trashy feel to it in terms of just everything. Like the real world in that movie feels so dirty, but even the fantasy within the fantasy, it all feels like grimy.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like in a negative way, not just like gritty and real, but just kind of grimy.
I agree.
Because like
in every level, it's like one thing I always think, okay, if the real world in that mental institution, whatever the real world is, that should be this sickening world that you need to escape from. It is so horrible. You need to find this place that you mentally go to have an action adventure. And then the action adventure world has to have some level of beauty to it. It's just as grimy and as everything else. And maybe like it stays grimy for the fight, and then you break through and there's some kind of level of something that she's reaching for, that beauty that she can never attain, but it's never teased. We never have that in this world. It's just, nope, there's more grime over there. More grime over there. Like,
And,
it's
all the men in the movie are like sweaty and gross and like they have pimples and like.
I mean, I'm okay with that too, though. Like, I mean,
it's kind of creepy. It sets a precedent. Like,
can I also say that I think that this movie's trying to be so feminist that it's not at all. Like, it isn't at all. It is. I don't find this empowering at all. I find it.
I cannot really speak to that, but
no, I know.
I'll
but
say
like,
this. No, you know what? I can because I'm a father to 2 little girls, and so it's definitely makes me evaluate things in a different way because I want them to grow up in a better world than I grew up in, for example. But I would not want them to watch this movie.
Well,
that's what I think about it. I wouldn't want them to see this as something that they would aspire to.
Can I compare like so? Like, I want to say like I feel like he tried. He tried really, 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 really hard. But to me, it just doesn't. Like, have you guys seen Harley Quinn?
Yeah, the Birds of Prey.
Yeah, Birds of Prey. Have you seen Birds of Prey yet?
I have not seen Birds of Prey.
Okay, well then, Paul, I will say that I think that he tried so hard for Oscar Isaac's character to be like Black Mask.
I mean, I could see that.
It definitely did not work.
And I mean, that really has to go with the direction. He didn't know how to direct the characters. There's no emotional weight to anything that happens in the movie. And like, here's the thing. I always play this game. Like, whenever you see a movie and you want to understand if the characters are, have any kind of dimensions, like, can you describe them without saying what they look like, what their ethnicity is? Can you describe them as characters? And like, can you take any one of these characters and describe them, without the most like. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you can't. You're right. You're totally right. And that's
no way to describe them. Like, how do you describe Babydoll? She fights a lot, and she's blonde. Like, what can you really? There's like no.
Yeah, she's like late '90s Britney Spears.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't know these characters, and so why do you care about their journey? Why do you care about their journey from, when do they go to the asylum, and then they go, and she goes off into like that fantasy world with the some kind of brothel, and then even more so a fantasy world where like she's fighting dragons and killing Nazi zombies. And I mean, I know this is cliche to say it, but it all felt like a video game. Like every fantasy was like a level, and she had to get the item at the end. And I know that's like, I think something like that would have been profound if video games like were still kind of new. Like if this movie came out,
or if this movie
or something.
No, even if this movie somehow acknowledged that too, that could be part of it. And also, one of the things that this movie that did nothing for this movie was, why does it need to be a period piece?
Yeah,
it's just like because you want it to be for the style purposes.
I have 3 questions. One thing. What fucking year does this movie take place in? Because it feels like it should be taking place like in the 1940s, and then they go outside and there's like modern cars and shit. Like, what? And secondly, it's just what the dancing? What? Like what? What is happening? And also, how do you fuck up like awesome fantasy scenarios that they came up with? How do you make that boring? And like, I tried watching this movie. This movie took me 3 attempts to watch. I know I'm the one who picked this movie for the podcast.
Yeah,
and
thanks for that, buddy.
Yeah,
thanks,
hey, no problem.
Appreciate it, buddy.
Hey, no problem, buddies. But I wanted to get through this because I actually know a lot of people who do love this film, and this concerns me. I do not like this film.
Why do they love it? Like when you talk to them, what are the reasons for it?
I know one person I can think of that loves it, and he is a visual artist, and he is a really, 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 really talented visual artist. But he's not a storyteller, and he's doesn't try to be. He's a sculptor and he's a painter.
Yeah, and
therefore he loved this movie when he saw it. He thought it was just brilliant because he doesn't care about the story. So I mean, not that the people you're talking about are the same, but at least I understand with him, because on that level it does work. There is that appeal there. It's there's times where it's like, this is downright gorgeous, but I would almost get angrier because of that, because I absolutely did not care about anything.
Yeah, they like it because they thought it was empowering, and I don't understand it. And they just said it was because of struggle, and I'm like, okay, but like I don't know. I think, and it's sorry to go back to it, but it's like when you have Birds of Prey, and then to this movie, Birds of Prey is so empowering and like so good, and this is just pathetic, like narcissistic, and like trying to be so smart and deep and so dark and edgy, and yet it just falls flat. It doesn't make any sense, and like it's a waste of time. And every single character, like what Paul said, is just like honestly a blah. Every character, even even Oscar Isaac's character is just I'm angry guy. Grr. Like nothing like nobody in this film is worth anything. Or
and the thing is like Zack Snyder, did he get his start from like doing music videos? Is that how he started out?
I mean, a lot of directors do. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think he was like more like an art director, visual effects style. Like he comes from the little I know. It is definitely more from his interest in film is definitely more on the visual side. His background in art.
You are correct. He did like Rod Stewart, ZZ Top, Soul Asylum, Morrissey, Peter Murphy, Playground, Lizzie Borden. I mean, big stuff. And then Dawn of the Dead was his first film.
I mean, you got to understand those music videos all have really great stories. I have no idea what's
I know. Well, I mean, yeah, visually, this movie is amazing visually, but the problem is like there's no, again, you don't care about the characters, you don't care about what's happening to them, and there's no weight to anything they do. Everything in the fantasy, like, oh my god, that there's like a neutrino bomb that blows up a city with Jenna Malone or whatever in it, and like that has no weight at all.
Yeah,
to anything that happens. Yeah, she just gets stabbed by that.
That was one thing too. Like I thought that the movie really needed. There was no. You have like 18 action sequences where there's no consequence, and then finally in the last maybe third of the movie is when Jenna Malone gets killed or stabbed in the real world, and it affects the fantasy world. You need to establish stakes earlier so that these sequences throughout the movie mean something. That doesn't happen until very late in the film. Yeah, and by that point you're so far tuned out that you're like, I don't care. I want them to all be dead.
Yeah, and like and all we knew about her was that she was just kind of like aloof, and that she was very forgiving and very, like that's it. And I'm just like, okay, but who are you?
I'm sassy. That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
So I actually
I have short hair.
Yeah.
That's my
I trust
characteristic.
People. Yeah, I trust people, and you're like, that's not a character. Trust is not a character.
Well, that was one of the things though, because and then Babydoll, who shows nothing that she should be like the ringleader, comes up with this plan that I'm gonna write on the back of this chalkboard thing. That it's 4 words long that I need on this chalkboard, so it can later be discovered. Why do you need to write that down?
And I like that she hides it behind something that everybody looks at, chalkboard, and it's just on the other side. And she's trying to hide her plan.
It was a Clark Kent thing, is what it was. Staring you right in the face. It's right there. It's destiny.
Yeah, for me, I had a hard time watching it. I actually fell asleep and watched it. And I was like, oh, fuck, I still have to watch that movie. So I went back and I went back to where I was and I, started watching it. And I kept on falling asleep. Yeah. It took me 3 or 4 tries just to finish it.
Yeah, I watched it once. I fell asleep about 2/3 of the way in. And then I went back to rewatch the entirety of it. And I just kept on pausing it. And just my ADHD was just like, I got to do something else. When it's weird because I'm usually fine watching a film. And man, I'm right there with you. I just needed a break.
I'll say this. Normally when I watch these things, I do it late after the girls are asleep, my kids are asleep. And normally I'm watching it, for the most part, even if it's a bad movie, I want to watch it through just to experience the whole thing, ideally. I like to watch movies like that. I always have. That's why I like going to a theater, because I like to just be consumed by a movie as I watch it. And that's hard to do as a parent in particular these days. But as I'm watching this, I'm literally like, God, please wake up. Can one of the kids wake up? Wake up. Do I hear a crying baby? Wake up. Oh, no. Like, Judy's like, turn the movie down. But I'm like, a little bit louder. Maybe they'll hear it. I'll have to go take a break, get her back to sleep.
What were you going to say, Paul? Sorry, I think I cut you off.
Oh, so actually when it got to the end credits, I was relieved. I was like, oh, thank God it ended.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet Jesus, this movie's over. And then they play this song where it's like Oscar Isaac and Carla Gugino. She was like, they're singing and they have these they're flashing like these sequences of these dance numbers, and I was like, why didn't they have that in the movie?
Yeah.
Like, this sequence is better than like most of the movie. Like, they should have inserted that into the movie to give it some kind of levity, and even like the way it was shot was like with bright colors and like visually pleasing, and like it was a good song and everything. And I was like, why did you leave this for the credits? This is like, so I'm wondering if like, is the movie the way it is because of Zack Snyder, or is it because of the editing? Like, who is the one to point?
I think it is because I think it is Zack Snyder. That's my my thought is because this, I think, is Zack Snyder sort of without any restraint whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I think he can be a really fantastic filmmaker, but it's just, Zack, do whatever you want to do, because he's coming off of success with 300, success with the Dawn of the Dead remake, success with Watchmen. All those things made money.
Yeah.
They were, so he's like, this is his do what you want film. Oh. And he just went too all over the place with it. And I think Zack Snyder, when I hear him talk about his films, it's always more interesting than any of his films.
Yeah.
He's always has more to say, but he doesn't always execute it. And there's always things going on that it just doesn't always execute in the filmmaking, in particular in this film where he didn't have, I don't want to blame the writer by any means, but maybe not like he could have used more support there to start with. Okay, let's get a really good writer on with you, like someone who, a name that has a track record. Not that that matters. Nobody can be a good writer, but just some kind of writer that would have helped reel it in, because that's, I think, where it sort of stands.
I agree. I absolutely 1,000% would blame Zack Snyder on this, and also the casting of Emily Browning. I definitely think if you look at things that'll maybe look like there's more studio involvement, or maybe his animated film, Legend of Ga'Hoole, which I actually very much love. I love that film.
Oh yeah, he did that Owl movie, right?
It's
Owl movie.
It's a great film, and he directed it. But I feel like Zack Snyder needs a directing partner, like a Phil Lord, Chris Miller, I feel like he's like a creative one, and then he needs somebody to be more of like the visual one, and a visual side of it, and that's how like a lot of director pairings work. And look at the success of like Endgame and Infinity War. I mean, with the why am I forgetting the name of the brothers? The Russo brothers from like Community and Arrested Development. I mean, they're amazing and they work so well together. And then you have Phil Lord, Chris Miller. I think Zack Snyder has some great ideas, but man, I don't think he's good on a production. I think he focuses so much on like techniques and stuff as opposed to the meat of the movie, which is performance, which is story, which is capturing, which is having a very, very good visual shot that also complements as to what the tone of the scene is. Like what you were saying. You have like these uncomfortable close shots when they're supposed to be dancing or preparing to dance. When they're doing that, it should be like an out shot where you see an entire room for them to fill in, and you just kind of like, and it's just not even vocal stuff. It's just things that you just kind of see. I just don't think in like Man of Steel, lacks it so much. And it's just a problem that he has. Batman v Superman, Man of Steel, all these movies where they're actually good concepts. And he has a good team, but it's just really shit execution. And they all have different editors.
Is it the studio just like doesn't give him any notes or something? Like, because it feels like he doesn't, like there's no oversight. That it's purely just his vision and nobody kind of reining it in.
Well, I mean, Christopher Nolan was there for Man of Steel and consulted.
He was only a producer. I was at a thing where he talked about it. He was only a producer on a name because he essentially, David Goyer pitched the concept to him and he brought it to the studio with David Goyer, and that was where he stepped away. So he wasn't really a consultant.
So he wasn't even on it then.
So that was where his his involvement end, and I actually saw that he did a conversation about The Dark Knight. Right, that was right when Man of Steel came out, and because basically,
Dark Knight Rises,
I'm sorry that he was distancing himself from it a little bit, because they're like, oh, what was your involvement? He's like, well, I just essentially was, he played it, he maybe downplayed it a little bit, but he essentially was saying, oh, I set up the meeting. That's what it sounded like. But really, that is true, because it was in the story there was David Goyer, and I think honestly, that's why Man of Steel works a little bit better, because you have a David Goyer who I think he has some missteps along his career, but he's a stronger story guy.
Yeah,
and I think that's what I think Zack Snyder really needs. Whatever that's like a partner who's a writing partner who maybe doesn't co-direct with him, but writes and is there through the whole process to make sure the story stuff gets followed through with, or something. But that element is missing consistently in otherwise good films, and always films that are at least interesting to talk about. I mean, this is the only one I would definitely say is a bad film. I don't care for 300.
Yeah, I don't either. I think this is absolutely his worst film.
I
same here.
Really like 300, and when this movie came out, I liked Dawn of the Dead a lot, and when I first saw Dawn of the Dead and 300, I was like, wow, this is a really good new filmmaker. I'm really excited about Zack Snyder and like everything that he's going to come out with. And like Watchmen was the first one where I was like, wait a minute, this is kind of bizarre. There's some questionable decisions.
Like Watchmen was a weird one because he was such a slave to the comic and yet didn't seem to get the point.
Yeah.
It's
and I'm also the minority though. Like I agree that he did not understand the comic, but I will say this: I actually like his ending more than I do of the giant squid. In all seriousness.
I don't, because what the problem with the film is, the Watchmen, the Zack Snyder's film, by Dr. Manhattan being blamed for it and then leaving, it makes Dr. Manhattan actually a hero.
Oh, I meant the plan with I just meant Ozymandias' plan. I liked more because I think if I had seen a big metal squid and them fighting it and then be like, what? This is a robot, and like that would have been a really hard sell, kind of like Galactus.
Did you watch the HBO Watchmen though?
Oh yeah, 1000%. But
and how the squid sequences were executed, it made me think, oh, this could have worked as a feature film. That sequence with
I don't think Zack Snyder could have done it.
Head guy.
What's that? Yeah, no, that's a great show.
Yeah, no, the show is great, but also that show is so much darker and had so much more time. Yeah, I think that it would have worked if they made Watchmen into a TV show as opposed to a film. But
you understand
literally
what
think
I'm
about
saying.
No, I know what you mean, but I think setting up, because that show, like, you see Squid from the thing, and if you don't know anything, like, let's just say people had never read the comic before, they saw the movie and then they watched the show and they didn't know what the squids, like the baby squids falling from the sky were, they would have assumed, okay, they're going to explain it later on. And of course they don't, but then they kind of do as well in the show. Ozymandias does talk about it, and when they go back into his lab and everything, and from flashbacks, and the thing is that they got time, and like a lot of time, to explain what is happening. Where in the movie, I mean, that's a huge, like, one thing. I don't think Watchmen should ever be one movie. Like it is a gigantic book that with lots of dialogue. It is a hard read. Like, it's a great book, but it's hard to read it in the one sitting, and putting it into one film is like insane to me. So
but that's the thing. It's like at the time when Watchmen was made, the whole like limited series concept wasn't really like a common thing.
It almost was done that though. Like, Watchmen before that was almost done as a limited series prior to that.
Terry Gilliam wanted to make it a mini series.
Mm-hmm.
And like Netflix wasn't around, or anything, because like all these streaming platforms really like want to kind of experiment a little bit, like HBO or.
Like, I mean, look at BBC and a lot of other countries, and a lot of countries also do the series thing. Look at anime, look at the BBC shows, like look at Sherlock, Doctor Who, all those. 6 to 10 episodes, or sometimes 4.
So I think if like he were to pitch it as a limited series at the time, I think Watchmen would have never been made.
Yeah.
Because it just wasn't a common thing to do it that way. So they said, okay, well, I have an idea for a movie. Like, might as well pitch it as a movie, because at the time, like comic book movies were like started to become a really big thing or were commonplace, like with Iron Man, The Dark Knight, and so it's like it would make more sense to sell that as a movie as opposed to.
I mean, maybe that's true, but it almost got made before that as a limited series.
We should probably go back to Sucker Punch.
Oh yeah,
well, yeah, because
it's not my fault that the movie's uninteresting.
I know.
And what I'm trying to say is that that ending for Watchmen with Dr. Manhattan being the one blamed and then him leaving Earth, because at the end of the comic, it's these interdimensional squids that are created by Ozymandias, where in the movie he creates the illusion that Dr. Manhattan did it. So therefore, when Dr. Manhattan leaves, he becomes that external threat that Dr. Manhattan might do this again, so the world has to unite. But the problem is it makes Dr. Manhattan a hero, and that just blows up the whole thing. And my point being is that I think it's an example where Zack Snyder has so much to say, but when you don't get it, you don't get it.
Yeah.
Batman and Batman versus Superman. I saw him talking about, his version of Batman and his inspiration. And I don't even have a problem with a Batman that kills, but he was talking about The Dark Knight Returns, and Batman doesn't kill in that. That's like a specific story point that Batman doesn't kill in that.
Yeah.
There's a point where he's literally using rubber bullets, and then the whole thing where then the Joker snaps his own neck to then make it look like he killed him. And there's like throughout the comic, there's like a list of crimes Batman's wanted for, and only after that does it add murder to it.
Yeah, he does in Batman and the Dark Knight Strikes Again, or Strikes Again, or something like that. The Batman Strikes, or whatever it's called. The shitty sequel that nobody should ever read.
No, I know. Yeah, I know what you're saying. But yeah, that's the point though, is that those things are just examples of like there's something really awesome that there's something missing, and you're missing the point.
Yeah.
And this movie where it's him completely doing what he wants, it's a whole movie of missing the point.
Yeah.
Where it's like I want to be empowering, and then but instead I'm making a fetish film.
Yeah, or like what Paul said, it's a music video that has no payoff, and then at the end, it has like this reveal where you're just like, oh, see, it was her story the whole time, and you're just like, I don't fucking care. Like all their stories suck, all of them suck. Fuck them, fuck everybody in this movie. Like, like it's just.
Like in my notes, I literally.
Here's the thing. Like this movie is like Thousand Island. Like you have to have some lettuce in there for it to like taste good. You can't just have.
You need to dilute
the bottle. And
drink it.
The flavor, the flavor's fine if it's diluted a little bit. Like.
Yeah, exactly. You have to have some lettuce in there.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I have to say, I think the thing that's tragic to me is like he's obviously very talented, a very good visual director, and like he has some great ideas. It's just like it turns into a train wreck. And the thing is like it's upsetting to me because he's like he has a lot of good elements to him, and he's obviously not like a hack like Uwe Boll or some other director like that.
He's not a terrible or bad director. It's just he's a misguided director.
And so
I
feel bad for him because I honestly feel bad because he gets the hate that somebody like Uwe Boll would get.
Yeah.
Or
no. Let's compare him, or let's compare it to like another thing, like the hate M. Night Shyamalan deserves. Like that's I hate M. Night Shyamalan.
I think M. Night Shyamalan's different because he seems to be that there's like there's a great film about like the history of independent film. It talks about how like where Shyamalan came up in his first film that escapes me, and I can't think of the name of the book. It's in a box here in the garage with me that I'm recording in. And but the book talks about Shyamalan and basically his ego before he was ever successful. He thought he was so great and be successful. But part of why I like Zack Snyder is I like Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
When I hear him talk, just the person Zack Snyder.
He's not a jerk. That's
a dude. Yeah, no, he's a good dude. He seems like a good dude who cares about people and his family, for example. He had a great tragedy with when he exited Justice League, and I care about him as a person. It's almost like I feel like when we're taking this movie part, I want him to succeed. It's different. Oh, yeah. With Shyamalan, I'm like, yeah, I want your movie to be bad because you seem like such a jerk.
Yeah. Well, I want to add on to like what the thing was Zack Snyder. It's like he really cared about this movie being empowering. Like he really, really did, and I don't blame him. I'm not saying that he made this a not an empowering movie, but the exact opposite. It's not like really his fault of like what him trying to do. It's just the end result of what happens when you. Yeah, I always think that a movie where the director has full 1,000% control over is not the best thing in the world. I actually want studio involvement sometimes. I mean, Rogue One would have probably have been an entire mess had Disney not be like, hey, can we see a copy real quick? No, we're doing reshoots. Like all the notes and all the things that got leaked out and everything, it was just like it sounded like an absolute train wreck. I mean, and I will say, like with Zack Snyder with the Justice League, he's never bashed Joss Whedon once. He never was upset. He never had anything like that, and I give him a lot of respect for that. Like I think he is genuinely a great dude, and who actually does have some really great stories. But again, he's just misguided. I feel like maybe he just got so big, and that studios just kind of just let him do his own thing, maybe just too prematurely before he was able to grow more.
I mentioned it before, but I feel like it's kind of like with J.J. Abrams, where he's known as being really good with a pitch. And he's talked about that. I've seen him talk about that. He's like, his dad was in the industry and he would sit and play action figures as his dad would pitch. I wonder if that's part of it with Zack Snyder. He's so good visually. He can probably create a pitch, have a few things that will blow you away visually, and just sell it in that way. But then there's a lack of substance in the story again. And I think that's what the problem is. But I feel like he must be one of those guys that, I mean, I would imagine, like, if I'm in a room with him and he's telling me, I remember when I was at Comic-Con, I'm sure you guys were both there, the one and only time I did Hall H, he comes out at the end of the Warner Brothers panel and he's like, oh, one more thing. And he brings out Harry Lennox to read that part.
Yeah.
He reads a line from from Batman, from the Dark Knight Returns. He's like, I'm not saying it's this, but it's based on this. And the energy of that guy in that moment, totally, I can see how when he talks about these things, you're like, oh, okay, it'll be brilliant. And then do what you want. And then, oh, we should have kept the closer tabs on him.
Yeah.
And then what happens is he goes too far in this direction unchecked, because you don't want to hear, like, studio interference is always like this negative thing. But if you have the right support system, the right people, the right team, then you're good. When it's a panel of executives who are just like naysaying things, that's not necessarily the case. But there are certain instances where they can help guide it in the right direction particularly when it's creative people or producers who have experience, not just like board members, that kind of studio, the right kind of studio interference, as opposed to like, some executive in a suit. So,
God, I'm just trying to think like I think I actually might prefer Zack Snyder over J.J. Abrams now. Like the last movie I relatively liked of J.J. Abrams was Super 8, and even then, like I rewatched it and it was like, oh, this really isn't that great. And then even the first Star Trek movie isn't even like the greatest. It was what Star Trek needed, but it's still not like that amazing. I don't know if I like anything of his since Alias that he directed, because Mission Impossible 3 was terrible. Like,
oh, and the DP on this, Larry Fong, also did Super 8, I believe.
Well, like, I think I actually will prefer Zack Snyder over J.J. Abrams.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I think they have the same problem where they're good visually, but as a storyteller, they're kind of lacking.
Yeah.
Or with J.J. Abrams, he likes to take certain elements of like Spielberg movies and incorporate it into his own movies.
I think J.J. Abrams is different. It's not that he's a great visual director or anything. I think he's okay at that at best, but I think he's great at characters. But not necessarily its story.
Yeah,
because he's great characters, and it's like, well, I don't know what to do with them now.
I mean, like Lost, he directed like the pilot for Lost, and those episodes were amazing. Like the first season of Lost is so amazing. I don't know, most people's relationship is like with Lost is like, oh, hey, the last episode wasn't very good, but if you watch that first season, it's like so amazing. It's like one of the best seasons of television like ever. And J.J. Abrams had like a lot to do with that first season, and then he left.
Your boy from Watchmen, not your boy, I don't know why I said it that way, but Damon, what's the last name?
Lindelof.
Yes, thank you. But he was a big reason why that came together. J.J. Abrams was working on it, and then he came in and.
Oh, I thought J.J. Abrams created it. I thought it was his baby. It was Inception.
No, it was someone else prior to JJ, I believe, and then JJ came in, and then Damon Lindelof came in. I think it's been a while since
there was an executive that had the idea for Lost, and he pitched it to J.J. Abrams, and J.J. Abrams and Damon Lindelof, like, they kind of finessed it into the story that it became.
There's another guy that was with their team, Carlton Hughes. Yeah. So he was another one. Those three kind of, molded into what it was. But because I believe there was a pilot that existed before J.J. Abrams of, Lost in a very different sense. But once they came in, it went a very different direction. So we're like all over the place. I know. This is the most wonderful episode in some ways. And because I always like to sort of, it's funny because when I host, and I think I'm still hosting this, right? I don't even know anymore. But when I host, doesn't even matter. When I host, I like to break things down, though, in terms of story. And the problem is
I don't know the story. Okay, so they go from one room to the next room, fantasy. Then they go back to that room into another room, and everything looks the same. Oscar Isaac yells, there's a gun for some reason, even though there's security. They're dancing in a club for some reason. Clearly these women are kidnapped, and the doctor should know this, but he doesn't care. It's like more of a hostage situation. There's no way that this is publicly funded because of, I don't know, there are checks for this stuff. Like, I would think that, OSHA and, the state for, an insane asylum would come in and check it out and see, oh, look, there's a club here. Wait a second.
This is the 1940s or whenever, though, so.
No, this is current time. I think the movie is current time because when they go outside with all those cars, they're like modern cars.
I don't remember there being modern cars.
Somebody has a Honda Accord out there or something?
Yeah, no, right? I believe I saw a Honda Fit. I'm kidding. I don't know.
But that's the problem with this movie. It's so
I'm looking this up.
It's so ambiguous. You should know exactly what the motivations of the characters are. You should know what the storyline is. You should know these things, like, visually, like, what's happening, like,
1960s. Okay, so.
1960s? Okay.
Oh, 1960s. Yeah, I mean, it's like, a lot of it is so confusing, and that's the thing. It's like in the first like 5 minutes, I was confused as to how the little sister died, and that's like the main thrust of the story.
The cars are from the 1960s, so Tyler's saying there's modern cars. That tells you how long it's been since Tyler's been outside of the house.
Oh yeah,
it's like if you go to Cuba, it's like, oh, that's the newest 1957. Chevrolet.
I'm surprised this is over, by the way.
Are we still listening to cassette tapes? I mean,
tracks.
I mean, I also maybe just wasn't caring and focusing. Maybe is also the other thing is I just saw cars. I was like, oh, okay, whatever. I don't know. This movie is one of those hard watches where I just didn't care, still don't care, and will never care again. And anybody who really likes this movie, I don't think like anything bad about them. I just want to be like, I want to, like, I don't even want to ask them why. I'll just be like, okay, and that's it. Like, I just, if people like this movie, that's great. Enjoy what you enjoy. Love what you love. That is totally fine. If you like this movie, great. But I don't care. Like, I don't like, and this is like one of those few movies where, like, I will argue about Green Lantern, even though I don't even like Green Lantern. I will still argue that it's not terrible, even though I know it's terrible. It's the weirdest phenomenon. This one is just like, whatever. Like, I will argue about The Room till until the day I die.
It's so funny because if I were to choose between the two of these movies, I would rather choose this over Green Lantern. Because at least Sucker Punch has like a unique vision, and visually it's like very impressive. Whereas Green Lantern is just like, I mean, and this movie's kind of
Green Lantern has a story,
but
it might not be perfect or well executed,
and it's relatively funny. I mean, there's some jokes in it. I mean, there's some good performances in it too. Where this movie, like, I think Oscar Isaac is one of the greatest actors working today. I think that what's her name? Oh my God, why am I forgetting her name? Oh, I love her so much. And Carla. Yeah, I think she's an absolute phenomenal actress. I really do. And you've John Hamm in this movie. I don't think anybody outside of Jenna Malone, Vanessa Hudgens, and Jamie Chung were good. Like, I don't even think Sweet Pea was that great. I thought she was just kind of like whatever.
here's the thing. It's like when I see a movie, I think, how miserable is this movie making me? And Green Lantern made me more miserable than this movie did. So
Really?
I would have to put this movie over Green Lantern. Not by much, mind you. It's still a turd, you know.
Yeah.
This turd happens to have a little corn in it or something, and so it's still a turd though. But it's a turd I prefer.
See, yeah, to me,
Wait, you want the turd with the corn in it? I don't. How's that better?
I don't know.
Sorry, that seems way worse. I don't need to see an undigested piece of corn.
Hey,
I have little kids and a dog.
Absolutely.
I have enough poop in my life, Paul.
I will say that to me, this is the worst kind of movie where it is so middling that it's aggravating because, like, again, it is beautiful to look at and an okay story. It's just the worst storytelling and a lot of just bad decisions.
But the story is so like the concept is good. The story is so thin. The concept is, oh, she killed her sister. She has to go to this asylum to deal with it. The weird thing is, at the beginning, there's also stuff with the dad and a will, and that's never resolved in any way.
Not at all.
We don't need that. Like, her father can be awful, and the father doesn't. It's irrelevant almost.
Yeah. All he has to say is, "You tried to kill your sister. You're in here now." That's it.
But what it should be is the everything she goes through should reveal something about her trauma, and it doesn't. None of it does. Like, as I'm watching it, I wrote down one thing. I wrote down, are these things supposed to mean anything in terms of like her trauma? And it doesn't. No. And if it does, I don't want to have to watch it with Zack Snyder to have him personally explain it to me.
Yeah, I know. I feel like there is, like, the reason why they brought in the whole Will B plot line is to make you think that she's gonna get out, maybe, or something. Like, I that's the only thing I can think of as to why that storyline is even or brought up. Like, him talking to Jason or Oscar Isaac. I keep calling him Jason Isaac. Great actor as well. But Oscar Isaac, like, him talking to him was just, all that was unnecessary. All he had to say was like was him dropping her off and the doctor being like, we'll take care of her here. Here's the tour. But that's the other thing, is he would do a tour without her first. That's how they do it. They don't bring in the patient and then they don't do the tour with the parent. They bring in the parent first to show them what's happening, and then they transport, like, whatever. But still,
when I board my dog, I don't take my dog to the facility. I look at the facility first, and that's my dog.
Yeah, and like
my daughter, even if I'm a bad father, I'm leaving my kid there.
So if that was what he was going for, it did not work. You don't need a big aha, like the whole ending with Sweet Pea going into the bus and everything like that was like this whole, like, it was just a scene that was just screaming out like, aha, I got you. And you're just like, the scene before this was her escaping, right? Like, we saw her escape, like we saw that. You didn't do anything. This isn't an aha moment because we literally saw her escape. Like, that's the thing, is that you see them there, and like, a better reveal would have been like Babydoll just being like, okay, just stay, just stay here and watch this, and then cuts, and then it's like, and then does like a Skyrim thing where it just kind of like fades out, and then you just see Sweet Pea waiting for the bus, and then she's about to get on, they stop her, and the bus driver talks, and then they drive away. That is a twist ending where you think that Babydoll thought of a plan and that she's not there.
The only thing I liked about the ending was, again, I love John Glenn in the movie because he's just so good. Even though there's no context for his character, I like that he's there, at least as far as this movie. But that was it. That's the only thing I liked about that.
Like, I would have liked if actually those fantasy sequences become the reality, and those fantasy sequences are her reality, and everything in the brothel and all that stuff is a fantasy. There's like a reversal in that way.
Well, I think the whole thing is about escapism and dealing with trauma is what the fantasy is. So that would have definitely affected.
Like, it's that, she eventually becomes part of that world that she escapes into, and that becomes her reality. Like, I think that'd be kind of neat. A neat twist. that becomes a reality as opposed
well,
to...
Well, maybe I like that idea. No, that becomes her reality, Babydoll, and that becoming her reality then allows Sweet Pea to then actually escape. So by her being consumed with her insanity, essentially, she allows someone else freedom that she can never have. That I like. So
there you go. Exactly.
And I'll say this, I'm actually working on a novel called The Paperboy, and it's a story of a newspaper carrier boy.
Is it a sequel to this? I'm just kidding.
It's a prequel to the middle part of this movie. No, but there's a part where in my story, the basis of my story is the Paperboy character finds the corpse of a little boy in the forest, right? And that little boy proceeds to then haunt him throughout the film.
Spoiler
and we
alert.
Then have... Yeah, throughout the story, yeah. Well, that part happens early.
I was joking. I was just kidding. Sorry.
No one's gonna buy it now. So, it's like every Sucker Punch fan is like, I'm not buying that guy's book. So, but in the story, what I was going for was there's a part that is essentially your prologue, right, where it's that little boy and the horrible thing that happens to him that results in his death. And essentially, he escapes into a fantasy world of comic books and cartoon characters. He's a very little boy to allow himself to cope with what's happening because he knows he's being killed by someone. He knows he's being abused, but he can't. He's being part of it. Being a child, he can't even understand it on an adult level. So he literally sees it as, the bad guy in Super Friends kind of thing. That's his level of understanding. So he escapes into that fantasy world and he dies in our world, but he's in a sense okay because he's in that fantasy world. And I didn't even think about that as I was watching this, but what Paul said, that would have been a really, if that fantasy becomes that, and whereas it's the escape for the other character. But it just, I don't think they were thinking that much about it.
Yeah.
That's the way it strikes me.
Yeah, honestly, like, one thing that reminds me, and I hate myself for knowing this. It's just I had people who made me watch it. It reminds me of the Once Upon a Time with the Peter Pan and Once Upon a Time, the whole thing where like Peter Pan was actually evil and stuff like that, and taking kids basically to like the afterlife of never. Like, I know, unfortunately, I watched like 4 seasons. I watched like 4 seasons of Once Upon a Time, and it's literally one of the worst shows I've ever seen. And I hated every single second of it. No, the first season was like okay-ish, and then it just kept going. And you're like, no, and then I relationships. Anyway,
is this after you watched Disney Descendants?
Oh God, no! I will never watch. I hate Disney. Anyway, no, I just. I've never seen Descendants. No, thank you.
I mean, I've seen the George Clooney movie, which I love, but not the Disney version. Once we were talking, I forget what it was. We were at like the Disney store and we're buying something, and the girl was like talking about something with the Descendants, and Judy and I are both like not knowing what the Disney Descendants was, thinking of the George Clooney film, and we're so confused. We're like, what? You sell like dresses with the Descendants?
Yeah.
And then
is it the mom? Is it dead? Was she on a boat? Like, we sell the boat. We sell the boat here.
Like, and then like she showed us, and we're like, oh, this is definitely not what we were thinking.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love the Descendants.
This is what we got to do. We go back in this. We need to have a tally of how many things other than Sucker Punch we've talked about.
I think I'm okay with ending this episode.
No, I think it's a good point to wrap up because we did, like, in terms of the film, we did talk about it to conclusion. Any final thoughts on Sucker Punch? We really said it over and over again. I think we all agree it's missing story.
Yeah, and yeah, it's bad. This is a bad film. This is a very, very, very bad film. Watch Birds of Prey instead, because I feel like that's what this movie was trying to be.
Now I have to see Birds of Prey, which I haven't seen.
It's pretty good.
It's my favorite DC film.
I enjoyed it. So, so basically, I mean, would you recommend this to anybody?
No, absolutely not.
No.
0%.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I really wouldn't. Not even like on a sense of like how we were discussing it.
Yeah.
Unless you have a podcast or something that you want to talk about bad movies, like it's not even. It's really not worth watching because there are just so many things that even when they're bad in a way that are engaging.
Yeah, and the whole time I'm just like, I want to watch something else, even though I picked this movie, and I'm sorry.
I'm going to say that I do recommend it, but with an asterisk. And the asterisk is this. If you're a film student and you want to learn how not to make a film, then watch this film.
Well, I mean you can say that to anybody with a bad film. No, I would say for them instead, you know, watch something else.
Well,
Watch an M. Night Shyamalan movie. That's it.
I would say that with this movie, because there's a lot of things about it, like visually, that are very successful and really well done. But there's like certain missing elements that make it a complete package. So I think it's like a really good.
But it's like 9 out of 10 missing elements. Go ahead, sorry, Paul.
I'm just saying it's a really good movie to analyze about like for like a film student or like doing a student film, to realize like what's really important, like what are the basic things you need before you go visually go all crazy.
Like again, this is not a bad film. This is a very middling film that's aggravating because it had potential. That's how I view this.
Yeah, I mean, I
think it's bad. I think it's bad.
I mean, I think it's bad, but
I really feel like I almost feel guilty because I just like Zack Snyder, and I'm a bit of an apologist for him in other senses, even though like sometimes I get very frustrated when he misses. Like I've talked about it a lot in this. So, but before I saw it, like I knew that it wasn't good, and I wanted to like it. I wanted to have that counter opinion but I couldn't at all. There was just nothing for me to latch onto and say, well, this was good, this was working, because nothing was, and that almost makes me sadder.
I mean, I like Zack Snyder. I like Dawn of the Dead. I love Legend of Ga'Hoole, or the Owls of Ga'Hoole. I do like his cut of Batman v Superman. I think it's fine, but I'm also a DC fanboy. I'm
You're the one.
Yeah. I'm fine.
What?
That's fine. I mean, I wanted a dark Batman Superman movie, and I got it. It's just
you did.
It's just a bad script, but I think he actually understood the directing part and the storytelling part a little bit better, especially compared to this film. There was a coherent story in that movie. It was just a few stupid things, Martha, and
Martha. I just got it. Oh my god, that was the name of both of their moms. That's so deep.
It's like, I mean, one thing is, like for me, I saw 300. I really liked it. I saw Dawn of the Dead. I really liked it. Watchmen. I liked it. I
like Watchmen. I love Rorschach escaping the prison. Like it's like one of the coolest freaking.
Well, let me finish.
Like I'll say this: I own all of Zack Snyder's comic book movies. I own them. So, and I don't know.
I mean, I came into the movie thinking that I'm going to watch 300 or something I enjoy. I was hoping that it was going to be a good movie, because Zack Snyder at that point didn't do me wrong.
Yeah.
And then I saw this and was just like disappointed. But I was like, oh, okay, well, it's a misstep. He's a new director. But I didn't think that this was going to be
an ongoing issue
from here on out. Like, I didn't think this was going to be like a trend. I thought this was just a misstep.
Yeah, and that's how people felt about M. Night Shyamalan after Unbreakable. Like, but like I still think Unbreakable is his only good film, and even then, like his old roommate sued him and basically said that he wrote the script. And like at the time, and everyone's like, no, there's no way he wrote Sixth Sense. And then of course he started making more movies, and I was just like, there's no fucking way he wrote Unbreakable. There's absolutely no goddamn way he wrote Unbreakable. And I still will die.
Okay, what's the tally of other things up to now that aren't Sucker Punch?
Take a shot. Re-listen to this podcast. Take a shot every single time we talk about a different film.
And the good news is you can't really go anywhere, right? You're staying home right now.
X-Men First Class is
yes. But we'll leave it at that. So thank you so much for listening to us talk about Sucker Punch a little bit and a whole lot of other things. I feel like this is a kind of stupid movie. That's a harsh word, but it's kind of a dumb movie that really wants to be smart. And I guess there's something to that. So I got to give it some credit that it does want to be that, and I can see that upon discussing it, at least, maybe not upon watching it, but so at least it's worth a conversation. Tyler?
Can I have one more jab at M. Night Shyamalan? I will say that this...
I did not know. That was like the last thing I thought you would then say, but I want to hear it.
I'm going to bounce off of what you're saying. This is a dumb movie that is trying so hard to be smart, and it had the potential for it. Unlike, it's kind of like what happened with The Happening, minus the fact that M. Night Shyamalan directed it. Is that like The Happening had like an interesting twist. It actually did have an interesting twist in an actual plot. It's just the story leading up to it was just so freaking shitty, and M. Night Shyamalan can't direct to save his life. That that's why the movie sucks so hard, and that's why that is a massive like that to me is a bad film where nothing where the whole build up is absolute dog shit. Like it's horrible. The acting is bad. The script is bad. The twist is fine, but it's just it's nothingness. At least with this movie, when we got to see the ending and the twist of Sweet Pea, I actually was just like, oh, okay. Like, it didn't faze me, but it didn't anger me like watching The Happening. So that's why I'm saying, like, this is a very middling film, and that's why it annoys me. I don't think this is a bad film. The ending still made me be like, oh, okay. And there were certain parts of it where I was like, yeah, this is cool. And like, it is a gorgeous film. This movie was hard to watch for me to focus, but The Happening, because I was on a podcast talking about The Happening, that one took me 5 tries to watch. And I was a lot more focused and on medicine back then, where now I'm not on medicine. And that is I just wanted to give this movie credit and bounce off what you said. And also do one more jab at M. Night Shyamalan, because fuck that guy.
I think this movie broke Tyler.
This movie,
I don't think this movie did. I think it was M. Night Shyamalan just in general that broke Tyler. Yeah. And this movie might have sort of, pulled out, like, opened up some wounds.
Yeah, he pulled up a thread.
Okay, I guess I can say this because there's no way in hell that this person's going to listen to this podcast. I have friends who very much love this film for some reason. And one of them wrote like an entire essay of a on Facebook as a post, stating that people just don't get it, and like maybe I don't remember. I'm thinking maybe this word sexist was thrown around. That's fine, whatever. I just don't think it's empowering, because I have seen empowering films. Like I know I am not a woman and I can't speak for it, but the thing is that I have seen films that have empowered the masses and that have done a lot more. Like example, case in point, Harley Quinn. Almost every single female friend of mine who have seen that movie, like, even if they didn't like the movie, they were just like, hell yeah, though. Like, they were badass. And I'm like, you see, that's awesome. This movie, like, me watching it, it's just subjection and, like, and boringness. And, like, these characters, like, how are you finding something empowering when you don't have characters that have characteristics like what we were talking about? They're just blah. How do you relate to them? Like, they're nothing. They don't mean anything. And, like, Jenna Malone's character, Rocket, is the only one that had any slight of a personality or even anything. And, like, then they killed her off. Like, that's shitty. And so, I don't understand. And, like, this person who wrote the status was, like, adamant about, like, how everybody was wrong and that they're overlooking this film. And now I'm watching it, and I'm like, I just don't understand how you got to this destination with that. Like, this is just a movie that could be warranted for a long ass essay Facebook post, but then watching it now, I'm just like, it had the potential. But now, like, if I ever see this post somehow, if you post it from like a memory, I'm just gonna laugh at you, because this is not the movie to die on that rock.
And with that, we will say farewell and adieu. Thank you for letting us talk about a movie that wants to be about sort of the power of storytelling and imagination, but unfortunately isn't. It is not Atonement. It is not Life of Pi. It is Sucker Punch. Thank you for listening. And Tyler, where can they find us talking about these things?
Alrighty. Well, thanks for listening in. Thank you for listening to Tyler talk about M. Night Shyamalan and a bunch of other stuff. And you can listen to all of our shows on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on Google Podcasts, on Stitcher, and any podcast app. If you can't find us, please let us know. Also, go to our website, thegrandgeekgathering.com, because our article will have a lot more information as well. We have 7 other podcasts. I also stream on Twitch 5 times a week. We have our YouTube where we have Let's Plays. We have this show is also posted on YouTube as well. We have the Grand Geek Eatery and so much more. The music has been provided by Carlisle Laurent. And thank you guys so much for being here. Josiah, where can they find your YouTube channel and all the other stuff?
You can find me on YouTube, Instagram. Josiah is right, WRITE, where I talk about M. Night Shyamalan and how much I love him constantly. That's what I do.
Yeah. That he's a writing genius and that he
I do think Unbreakable is a genius film. I will say that. But
Absolutely.
yes, where you can find me, Josiah is right, Write.
Alrighty. And Paul, where can they find you?
Here.
At home?
That's it. Just doing this.
All right.
I just wait till we do the podcast.
Week to week. Yeah, Paul just staring at his
his desk.
His webcam.
I stare and wait for the Skype call to happen.
He's waiting for that.
Yeah, that beep and I perk up and everything.
Yeah, you boot up. You're like,
yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Alrighty. Well, come and join the gathering. Have a great week and GGG. Yeah.
What's on the silver screen? I got some takes you wouldn't believe. Popmosis Film. Grand Geek Gathering.